What is going on, Facebook viewers, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, Instagram posters, and X-tweeters, or whatever, whoever else, whatever you want to be. This is Referee Rob Jackson back with another episode of Referee Reacts, where basically we sit down, have a couple of drinks, react to something, and I'll give my input either during or after the video. Today's video, we're going to be working on Star Wars theories. What if Maul trained Anakin Skywalker? What if Darth Maul trained Anakin Skywalker trilogy? Now, I'm going to split this video up into two parts because, of course, stuff. It's a 40-minute video, as you can see, and I want to do the whole reaction, but I'd have to do like a lot of editing down and whatnot, and like my input alone is going to make the video a lot longer. So we'll do 20-minute segments of each one, and I'll basically upload this video in two parts. So let's go ahead and get right into the view. Oh yeah, as you can see, I'm wearing my old ass referee shirt, the one that my old senior referee Matt gave me. It's a little bit big on me, but it's what makes it comfortable. I do, however, have my based referee shirt. One of them hanging up, to give me an idea to keep going, and the other one I got right over his ear. Yeah, this is my other referee shirt. Of course, we got the setup going. So, all right, let's go ahead and get right into it.
With a definitive slice, Maul stared at the floor as he heard Obi-Wan's decapitated head fall and roll to his feet. His eyes glowing orange, fueled with victorious hatred. He could feel the dark side flow through him as he stood in the generator complex of the Royal Palace's hangar. No noise but the sadistic hum of his lightsaber. He sheathed his Jedi-killing weapon onto his belt. As he began to walk away, he heard the whimpering of Qui-Gon Jinn, who was still alive, snarking into the distance. He quickly turned, raising both hands as if he were a conductor in a John Williams orchestra. The two dead Jedi lifted in the air like limp noodles. He motioned his hands over the pit of the generator shaft and let go of the Force, peering over the edge as he watched them float down the tunnel into the unknown. Having discarded them like the trash they were, he grabbed his telecom from his pocket, communicating with his master, Darth Sidious.
It has been done, my lord.
Sidious appeared as a hologram in Maul's palm.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
Maul did a slight bow to his master as communication was cut. Staring at the ceiling, closing his eyes, he knew where Anakin was. Up in space. Grabbing his cloak from the main hangar where his fight with the two Jedi had ensued, he climbed aboard a larger ship of the rebels so as to blend in with the others above, flying to where he could feel Anakin would be. Upon Anakin's successful victory, Maul flew next to him and the other fighters. As he got Anakin's attention through the intercom system, motioning to follow him, he told him Padme and the others were waiting just for him at a private location that was kept a secret for her safety. Hiding his face beneath the cloaked cockpit of the carrier, Anakin, flooded with happiness, followed Maul, falling for his trap. Maul told him to leave quickly, boarding his ship as he knew the coordinates to the others and didn't want to create a lead for the Empire who may be watching. Anakin blindly accepted and flew his fighter into the large rebel ship. As it swallowed Anakin,
Empire,
he could feel something was wrong.
Republic?
Why didn't anyone tell me this before? Qui-Gon told me to stay put on Naboo. Maybe he changed his mind.
Technically, he told Anakin to stay put in that cockpit.
Anakin thought to himself. Once the doors to outer space shut behind him, Anakin got out of the cockpit and went up the stairs to the central navigation point through the glass windows. He saw a large chair at the center of the room overlooking the front of the ship and the galaxy. However, no one was in it. As he could feel the darkness in the room, he quickly turned to leave and get back into his ship when he walked straight into Maul, who had slithered behind him as he entered. Who are you? Where's Padme? Where's Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan? Are they here?
You don't need her. As for your Jedi friends, you can find them disembodied down the reactor's core. I have sensed your power. You are the one they speak of.
Anakin began to cry. He looked to the floor, thinking of an escape plan from the Red Devil, yet he found his voice to be so confident and powerful, even amidst the horrors they polluted. Something he secretly desired to emulate.
You wish to become a Jedi, don't you? I can feel your emotions, young one.
As Maul crouched to meet Anakin face to face, the only thing to change Anakin's mind was the promise to give him a better life than a slave, and to ultimately unlock his powers which he knew he had his whole life.
Do you wish to save your mother? I know you don't want her to be a slave to that wretched, disgusting creature they call Watto.
Yeah.
I can save her. I can kill her and make him suffer. I will release her to you where she will have food, shelter, and everything she needs.
Does that remind you?
I can make you more powerful
Avery,
than anyone in the galaxy, if what they say about you is true. Under my training, you will rise as my apprentice and be the most gifted Force user of them all. We shall overthrow the Emperor and the Jedi. We will have our revenge. And then, only then, you will take Padme the way you would take anything else you want. Now, if what I've said does not entice you, then you shall betray me. I will hunt your mother down, kill her and Padme.
What's up? Welcome to Develop
Fucking
Semicolon.
ads.
In today's
Love 'em.
video,
Love 'em.
I'll teach you how to animate.
Bringing you their heads for you to stare at every night in your sleep while I make you my slave. I will make your previous life look like a warm dream compared to what I can do to you.
So here's the thing that a lot of people don't really realize unless you watch the Clone Wars. Maul was, and also if you read a few of the novelizations. So originally, Maul was a Sith assassin, okay? He wasn't officially, Sidious wasn't breaking the rule of two, even though Sidious was training him to be an apprentice, according to Darth Plagueis, because Plagueis knew about Maul. And Plagueis was alive during the events of the Phantom Menace. Plagueis knew about Maul, and Maul, of course, was said to be a Sith assassin and not a Sith apprentice. Well, when Maul was going to kill Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Palpatine, aka Sidious, was going to, kill his master Darth Plagueis. Now, Plagueis, his original plan was for Palpatine to be elected Chancellor, and then Palpatine would have he would bring Plagueis in as co-Chancellor, but of course Plagueis would be using his name Hago Damask of the Damask banking clan, and they were to rule the galaxy, and Maul would be used as a Sith assassin, Count Dooku would be used as a Sith assassin, and they would eventually turn Anakin. Now Plagueis actually wanted Anakin dead because he saw that Anakin was a legitimate threat to their plans to take over the Republic. So with that being said, Maul originally was a Sith assassin. He was supposed to have come back to Sidious and become his official apprentice after Sidious had killed Darth Plagueis. And if you don't know how Sidious kills Plagueis, read the Plagueis novelization or look it up. It is Sidious knew he couldn't take Plagueis on. So let's get back to it.
Anakin was backed into a corner. He had no other choice. If what he said was true and Qui-Gon was really dead along with Obi-Wan, Anakin's primary goal was to become the most powerful he could be, so that no one would take advantage of him, able to save his mother, protect Padme, and bring peace to this world. Maul's eyes glowed orange through his hooded cloak. He peered into Anakin's blue eyes, his patience growing thin for an answer. He ignited his lightsaber, illuminating the room with a blood-red glow, bringing it to within an inch of Anakin's cheek. Not moving a muscle other than his wide eyes, Anakin stared at the saber with utter fear yet immense curiosity. The color was mesmerizing. The sound, the brightness of it, almost hypnotizing. Maul raised the saber so that the hilt was in front of Anakin. If he took it and did not attempt to strike Maul down, then this was his test to prove his initial transformation as his apprentice. However, if he failed, he would use telekinetic abilities to freeze Anakin in place and kill him, as he knew you cannot trust someone if they show even an ounce of traitorous loyalty once. Anakin looked up.
And that's the issue with the dark side. That is one of the biggest flaws, is that the dark side is based off of deception. Deception and selfishness. The craving for power. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion I gain power. Through power I gain strength. Through strength I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The force shall free me. Yeah, trust me. That's all the dark side is. It's based off of deception and betrayal. So
looked up at Maul, weighing his options. He knew he wanted power. He knew he wanted to save his mother. If what he said was true, then he was more powerful than Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, especially if they fought him as a team and he still won. Perhaps he could use Maul, and when he learned everything he could kill him and find Padme, freeing his mother from any control. He outstretched his small hand, grabbed the hilt of the lightsaber as it hummed with each inch of movement. He switched it off and bowed, pledging himself to the trainings of Darth Maul, his new master. Over the next 13 years, training heavily under Maul, utilizing his powers, mastering the acrobatics, learning the 7th of 7 lightsaber styles like Maul had. This style in particular was the most difficult, which harnessed the user's ability for proficient strength, speed, acrobatics, and athleticism. His body began to change, developing unbelievable muscle bellies and definition just like Maul had. Upon each large test, Anakin was tattooed by his master, just like Maul had done once to himself, and with
see
the
that I
command
could
of Lord
definitely see
Sidious.
happening, and
The Empire
especially
was
if
completely
Anakin had the
unaware of
tattoos from
Anakin's
the
existence,
animated
believing
Clone
him
Wars
to have
series,
been
not the
killed
3D
by
one, but
Maul on the
the
Battle of
OG
Naboo
animated
with
Clone
the other
Wars.
Jedi. Sidious was saddened by this, as he knew he was the prophecy reborn. However, he believed so greatly in Maul's abilities that he was able to look past it. Upon Maul's private time from the Emperor's dealings, he would travel to the home world of the ancient Sith Academy on Korriban, studying every single scripture and holocron passed down from the legendary Sith.
And Sidious would have encouraged
Bane,
this.
Revan, Ragnos, and anyone else he could
Dude,
soak
Marco
information
Ragnos was a
from.
beast,
Remember,
man.
Maul was as athletic as he was intelligent. He always understood the value of books, and to get ahead meant learning from those who had taken their experiences by writing them in the temple. He taught Anakin Force Lightning, although not his favorite attack, as he believed in fighting your opponent like a barbarian would, up close and personal. He poured every ounce of knowledge in the galaxy that he could gather and get his hands on into Anakin. The Anakin we saw at the end of Revenge of the Sith, under Obi-Wan's training, was nothing compared to the Anakin who was completely unlocked with no attachments to slow him down or waver his emotions under Maul's tutelage. His face covered in Sith tattoos, he neither identified himself as a Sith nor as a Jedi, bearing a black lightsaber, free of all rule. He was simply a powerful user of the Force,
a dark saber crystal,
blending to his mood and bound by no...
If you don't think that, alright, so black lightsabers existed in Legends, but more specifically in the EU with Force Awakens, or sorry, not Force Awakens, Force Unleashed, Star Wars Force Unleashed, and Force Unleashed 2, because you could get black saber crystal at some point when you do certain challenges or when you beat certain levels, and Force Unleashed 2, which I think Force Unleashed 2 plus the DLC to that game should have just been the DLC to the first game. But the combat in it is a lot better than the first game's combat. The only issue is that, of course, all the QuickTime events are just they're repeated QuickTime events, just the same ones over and over. At least use different ones. And the one thing I didn't like about both of the games is that, the one thing I didn't like about Force Unleashed 2 is that it was the same controls as the first game, and it just kept doing flashbacks over and over of how to do something, which it's bro, I know how to do it. But yeah, you can find a black saber. You could also find a white saber, a purified lightsaber crystal. Or you can get 2 purified crystals, 2 black saber crystals, 2 literally of every other color in the Star Wars thing. So, yeah, so they did exist, and he wasn't making some kind of mistake. These were what they were.
No code. His training was complete. Plotting to finally kill the Emperor, Maul led Anakin to Geonosis, where they would meet Sidious and Dooku, but known to them that Anakin was even alive. The time had come. They were ready. The night before the ship's arrival to their destination, Anakin closed his eyes to sleep, but he kept hearing whispers of a familiar voice.
Anakin.
He couldn't make out who or what it was, only that it was calling to him. He got up out of his bed and walked to the other room of the ship, alone. He looked outside to the galaxy. Everything was quiet. Not a single noise, other than the hum of the spaceship. An ominous blue orb appeared to his left, where he saw the outline of Qui-Gon Jinn appear. With shock, he stood still, not knowing what to do or think. Should he call his master? Should he strike down the premonition? Perhaps it was all in his head. He had been training awfully hard.
Anakin,
said Qui-Gon,
you have changed. The events on Naboo have ultimately changed the fate of the galaxy, and I am to blame for this. If I had perfected my skill and beaten Maul, you would have turned to the light side under my training and brought balance to the Force.
Yep.
Anakin's eyes began
the father
to swell
figure that
with tears.
Anakin needed was
the
Qui-Gon.
sight of his long-lost friend and potential master made him reminisce of who he once was and the path he was promised to follow.
So
Anakin replied with a harsh voice that he had brought peace to the galaxy. He was bound by no code of the Jedi or the Sith, and that he could do what he wanted. Qui-Gon assured Anakin that his freedom was not as well perceived as he had thought it was, telling him to look at himself, becoming the very image Maul had plotted for him to become. Anakin fell short of words. Hearing footsteps entering the room, Qui-Gon vanished. Anakin looked to see Maul very dissatisfied and asking who he was speaking to. No one, Master. As Anakin went back to his bed, Maul locked the door and imprisoned him to his quarters until their arrival on Geonosis. Anakin sat in the dark, observing the last 13 years and what he turned into. Meditating on his thoughts, Anakin believed that there was a way out of this. He did not know what to do, or who to call, as the only person he had over the last 13 years was Maul himself. Almost like a prisoner, he felt he couldn't do anything. He tried to channel the Force and talk to Qui-Gon, hearing him in his head, remembering Qui-Gon's face as if it were yesterday, as he kneeled closer to Anakin to tell him about midichlorians when he was checking his blood. It had seemed like a dream. So much had changed, so much had passed. He had been so caught up in the dream of saving his mother, becoming the most powerful user in the galaxy, and getting everything he ever wanted, so that no one again would ever bother him. He had turned into the very type of tyrant that controlled him and his kind years ago. Disgusted, he knew what to do. He had to
Qui-Gon was the father
Force,
figure
and the
Anakin
only way
needed,
to do
regardless
that
of if he
was
actually
to
became
kill
his father or
Sidious,
not.
Maul, and Dooku. How could he do this? He knew he wasn't powerful to take all three on at once. He would have to do it alone. He looked back to his training the last 13 years and remembered all the stealth-like moves Maul taught him, to think, breathe, and act like a shadow itself. As he opened his eyes and Qui-Gon's voice vanished, he knew what he had to do. He grabbed his lightsaber, holstered it on his belt, looked to the air shaft above, and entered it, crawling through the ceilings, and finally looking down upon Maul's room. This was the moment. This was what he was waiting for. He had to kill Maul, intercept Dooku and Sidious, and do what must be done. With a single flick of his lightsaber hilt, he ignited it, cutting through the shaft and falling to the floor of Maul's room. But he was nowhere to be found. The room was silent. All he could hear was his heart beating at a steady pace. In tune with his emotions, he moved his lightsaber around the room as it hummed in each direction, casting a dim hue into each corner of the room. Anakin searched his feelings for Maul, but felt absolutely nothing. The Tark presence was nowhere to be found.
Maul had left before Anakin even
Hey, Dad.
made up
I
his
don't
mind.
need you to be perfect. I don't need you
He
to
knew
be
the
superior.
moment that
I know you don't
Qui-Gon,
have it all figured.
the moment that Qui-Gon appeared,
Hearing
like
the
he
noise, he
immediately
pushed
went
open
to
the
do
door,
his
entering
thing.
the main console, looking out the window as he saw Maul's ship speed off into the abyss. He ran away, Anakin said. That wasn't like Maul to run, especially from his apprentice. He continued to stare at the ship as it was swallowed by the stars, sitting in his chair, thinking where Maul could have gone. He must have sensed Qui-Gon and was able to feel the shift in my emotions. Anakin leapt out of the chair. He's gone to meet Sidious and Dooku. Now that he knows I won't join him, he needed me. His whole plan all along was to train me as best as he could so that together, with my help, we could take down the Emperor and Tyrannus. He's afraid, either that or very stupid to think he can take them all on by himself. He knows I will look for him like he did for me on Tatooine. Anakin paused, eyes fixed on where Maul's ship had drifted into space.
Anakin
His mouth
immediately
wide
would have
open.
known.
Anakin moved to the center console, moving his fingers as fast as he could, opening the thrusters valve of the ship at full throttle, setting a course for Tatooine. His lips trembled as he whispered, "Mother." Knowing now that Maul was as evil as he was powerful, he would first make Anakin suffer for his betrayal by killing his mother and then taking his life after. He could not sit, he could not even breathe, thinking of what Maul could do to Shmi as he had promised when he had recruited Anakin first. He remembered there was one extra emergency escape pod on the lower deck. This pod would barely fit him, but it was very
That was
fast
my,
to escape danger in the case of an
Sonic
emergency.
screwdriver.
He quickly headed to the lower hangar, getting into the vessel and ejecting, setting a course for Tatooine. Anywhere on the planet would suffice at this point. As he looked behind him through the small window just large enough for his eyes to peek back at the ship, he could pinch it with 2 fingers. That was how fast he was moving through the desolate space.
I'm coming for you, Maul. Your time is at an end.
Not thinking of anything else, he meditated, knowing the fight ahead of him would be the most challenging and difficult he would face. He tried to see the positive in the situation, as it helped keep his fear at bay.
So that's one thing that we never got to see, and I wish we could have seen in the Clone Wars, Anakin versus Maul. I mean, the closest we even got to it was Maul almost ran Anakin over as a child. He didn't realize he almost ran over the Chosen One. He was like, "Oh, you're the little shit." Anakin's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up for that." Like I can literally see, I could definitely see that happening. Like, but we should have had Anakin versus Maul. Like, it would have been an awesome match. Like, I mean, like, bro, because Anakin, the chosen one, who was said to destroy the Sith, not join them, bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. And then Maul, who was actually very very well versed in lightsaber combat and very skilled in lightsaber combat. I believe what lightsaber form was it? It was either form 6 or 7 that Maul used. I can't remember. It was either form 6, 7, or 4 or 3. I gotta go back and research it, but I know Anakin used form 5, which I believe at the time form 5 was Gemso. But Anakin uses Gemso in Maul's form as well. Like, he has his own. Like, here's the one thing that I realized. Like, Obi-Wan. So Qui-Gon used Ataru, which it focused on strong strikes that were acrobatic, but most of the strikes were wide open, but like they were very strong. Sorry, my neck is killing me. Anakin or Obi-Wan also used Ataru until he had fought Maul. And then when he fought Maul, he actually ended up switching to Gemso, which uses an aggressive lightsaber form, or which is an aggressive lightsaber form. Because if you watch like the whole, the whole duel between Kenobi and between Maul versus Kenobi and Qui-Gon, you'll see that both Qui-Gon and Kenobi use Form 4, but when Maul stabs Qui-Gon, that's when Obi-Wan he actually ends up tapping into the dark side, and he switches forms and starts using Gemso, which is Anakin's form. And then after fighting Maul, Obi-Wan learns. He ends up learning to use training in Sorisu, which is the defense form. Even though he would lose against Count Dooku in a numerous amount of battles, Obi-Wan ends up becoming, according to Mace Windu, the master of Sorisu, as if Obi-Wan had invented the form. And the reason why he would always lose to Count Dooku is because Count Dooku used Form 2, which is Makashi, which focuses solely on lightsaber combat. And the way that he actually beat Obi-Wan and Anakin the first time around is that he would force Obi-Wan to be on the offensive while forcing Anakin to be on the defensive. And these are the two forms that Anakin and Obi-Wan normally are switched with. Usually Anakin's on the offensive, Obi-Wan's on the defensive. And if they had been able to work that into their duel with Count Dooku, Anakin, if he had struck first, Dooku would have had to immediately go into... he still would have used Makashi, but he would have... he would have started defending himself, and while he was doing that, when Anakin would attack him, he would be forced to attack Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan will be defending himself. So it would literally play into Anakin and Obi-Wan's hands, but he switched it and decided to use each other's forms against each other. So Makashi, if you really think about it, Makashi is a combination of all of the lightsaber forms. If you really think about it, I'm not saying that it 100% is canon that it is. But, if you really think about it, Makashi is used to counter every form. And Sidious, even though, he trained Dooku in the dark side, Sidious actually feared Dooku because Dooku's Makashi, so Dooku's the only one who has ever beaten Yoda in lightsaber combat. I also feel like that Dooku would be able to beat Mace in lightsaber combat as well. Because even though Dooku used the dark side, but I don't think he was inherently as evil as Sidious was, and as evil as Anakin became. But I do believe that Dooku, that's his thing. He forces them on the offense, and that's why he always beat them. So the lightsaber form and the lightsaber combat, it all comes down to it. And yeah, I don't know where I just ADHD'd off into a different branch, I think.
He saw it as a warm-up for Sidious and Dooku after. He knew he was lying to himself. He was afraid. If there was one man who tormented, tortured, and scarred him as a child, it was Maul. This feeling stuck with him no matter how old and powerful he became. After several hours, he could feel the planet nearing. Opening his eyes, he saw the giant sand-colored sphere grow in size with each star he passed. It had been over a decade since he saw his mother. He didn't know where to look, knowing he needed to find that
No. Skip.
wretched flying creature who enslaved them both. He would start there, as that would be the only place he could think of for who would know where his mother went. Softly landing on the planet as the massive double parachute of the pod opened like the wings of a butterfly, he sliced through the door, impatiently kicking it open. Squinting, not having seen his homeworld for too long, he did not miss it, nor the two merciless suns that would leave his skin raw when he was a boy, making the whip Watto used on him even more painfully searing. He knew where he was. By luck, the pod dropped him 20 miles from his hometown of Mos Espa. He would use the Force to run at beyond human speeds, eyes blaring with fury and
Which
rage,
is what Obi-Wan
as
should
his
have
legs
done.
moved so fast, it were as if he were floating on air. Seeing a Jawa in the distance, with his trail of stolen goods, some of which were speeders to his surprise, knowing he needed to save as much energy as he could, he traveled to the little annoying creature, without wasting time on formalities. One stroke was all it took. The Jawa sizzled on the charred sand as it twitched in 5 pieces, becoming motionless. Anakin boarded the bike. Without hesitation, he pushed it to its limits, traveling faster than he ever could by foot, even with the Force. He could see the mirage of the town near with every spark of angst he had. Getting off the bike as it continued to travel in a straight line, crashing into
One
a
of the
fruit
most-
stand
by the
and
way.
causing... Getting
One of the most iconic scenes in Star Wars history is when Anakin, filled with rage, is looking for his mother from the trying to get to the Tusken Raiders to free his mother, but it's him riding across the Tatooine deserts on that speeder. That's one of the most fucking iconic scenes in soundtracks of all time.
He could see the mirage of the town near with every spark of angst he had. Getting off the bike as it continued to travel in a straight line, crashing into a fruit stand and causing a scene, Anakin ran to Watto's workshop. Surfacing horrid memories, he ignored them and asked a slave where Watto was. The small, malnourished boy, covered in grease, dirt, and bruises, pointed to the outdoor cantina several blocks north. Anakin looked ahead. He could make out the silhouette of a fat, floating, waspy, bug-eyed creature socializing with other aliens over a drink. His heart racing, he didn't grab for his lightsaber yet, for he wanted to deal with his former master with his bare hands and new abilities. Watto looked at Anakin with his mouth agape, his drink falling to the earth with a shatter as his friends, including Sebulba, wondered who approached. Eyes glowing orange, Anakin walked up to Watto and grabbed him by the throat, almost piercing through his oily, bearded neck with his grasp. Several of Watto's friends grabbed Anakin's shoulders until they began to combust from the inside out.
Oh, I could definitely see that
Screaming in
happening.
agony,
I could
disintegrating
definitely
into
see
the
that
ground
happening.
until nothing was left but bones and flaming hair. People screamed with fear as they all ran in opposing directions from the scene. Watto's eyes bulging from their sockets, he tried to speak, saying his mother was on a moisture farm, not far from here. Anakin let go of his grasp.
How do you know I wanted to know about my mother? There was another just moments ago at my shop. He asked me to tell them, covered in a black cloak and hooded. I couldn't see his...
Watto's wings laid on the floor along with his legs and hands. Nothing but an egg with a head as he oscillated on the ground, shrieking for help. Anakin kicked him in the mouth as blood began to spew from where his broken teeth were. He looked down at Watto and said,
Now you feel some of my pain.
Walking up to a nearby onlooker on their speeder, he pushed them off as he raised one leg to saddle the vehicle. He sped off for this moisture farm, only hoping Maul hadn't found it yet first. Traveling for what seemed like
Again,
an hour,
iconic
as
scene.
the second sun began to slowly set, illuminating the darkness of the planet, he saw black smoke protrude from a home in the far distance. With a terrible feeling, he wished the speeder would go faster. Having topped it out the whole trip there, 3 bodies laid on the floor. They were unrecognizable, only that one was a man with no legs, and the other 2 were a young man and woman. Their remains weren't
Owen,
even
Baru,
human
and
looking
Klieg
anymore.
Lars.
Faces completely disformed, limbs missing, gashes on the parts
Bro,
of
that
their
was a
body
brutal
that weren't
scene
burnt
in A New
alive.
Hope, dude.
Even
Like-
for Anakin, this was
Like,
pure evil.
even for them, like,
His
it was
stomach
pretty
sank
fucking
at the
brutal,
sight.
man.
He didn't care for them, only in the hopes that his mother was not there. He walked into the home, which was still partially on fire, mostly reduced to charcoal by now. No sign of his mother could be found. The place was empty. Walking back to his speeder, he noticed a piece of paper laying in one of the burnt, severed hands. The arm was blackened and almost skeleton-like, however the paper was untouched, almost brand new, with the exception of char marks, of course. He pried open the crisping fingers as they fell apart. Opening the paper, it was a note from his mother. She was alive. She had managed to write him a message before Maul took her to Geonosis. It didn't look like her handwriting, but maybe she was in a rush as she was getting the paper before Maul took her. He only hoped.
He's baiting you, Anakin.
He said to himself as he stood up to get on his speeder and find the nearest ship. He knew Maul was waiting for him on Geonosis as planned, most likely with Dooku and the Emperor. This meant he had to take on all three of them. Nothing could get in his way now. He had to fulfill the prophecy. What about the other Jedi? Perhaps they could help. He had too much pride to ask for help. Besides, his powers were beyond that of any Jedi, so he thought. This was something he had to do alone.
Anakin.
Qui-Gon's voice appeared as Anakin
Alright, so we're going to have to cut the video off right here. I know, it's sad, but we'll get back to this in part 2 of Referee Reacts to What If Darth Maul Trained Anakin Skywalker trilogy. Yes, it's a trilogy because he made 3 parts of the video, but he put them all together in one. That's a 40-minute video, but we managed to watch half of that video, and we're going to watch some more in just a minute. So, thank you all so much for watching. I will catch you guys next time.